Super simple bread recipe. Here goes. 1 cup of water plus 2 tablespoons. This has to be warm, not extremely hot. We've got 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, dry active yeast. We've got 2 tablespoons of sugar, just regular granulated sugar. We've got 1.5 teaspoons of salt and 2 tablespoons of olive oil, plus 3 cups plus 2 tablespoons of unbleached organic flour. Step number 1 is to mix the yeast and the sugar and the warm water and whisk those together. So I'm going to do that right now. There's the warm water. Again, not hot, just warm. I'm going to sprinkle in the yeast and the sugar. And once I've stirred that, I'm going to let it sit for 5 minutes, and you'll see the yeast start to bubble up. This is called proofing the yeast. And then we'll be back. So this is going to sit again for 5 minutes. Okay, so it's been a little more than 5 minutes. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but I don't know. There's a foam and bubbling on top. I am going to add in the salt and the oil. I'll let that drip in. I used olive oil. You can use vegetable oil. My original recipe called for vegetable oil, but I've substituted olive oil and don't really notice any difference. And I kind of like olive oil better than vegetable oil, so that's what I'm sticking with. And now, into this, a little at a time, like a cup or so at a time, I'm going to add in the flour. And I'm just going to put in 1 cup. I'm going to take my fork, I'm going to stir it in. I've recently learned that this is called a shaggy dough, so I'm going to stir this until it forms a shaggy dough, 1 cup at a time, and then I'm going to dump it out onto my work surface here and knead it for 7 minutes. So I'm going to continue to add this 1 cup at a time, and I'll be back when it's all added in so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so I've switched from using a fork to a spatula because the spatula allows me to scrape the dry sides, and we're pretty close to that shaggy dough that you heard me mention before. I don't know if you can see what it looks like. It's kind of stringy. It's a little wet still, although it looks dry, but when you touch it, different parts are drier and wetter, and I'm about to dump it out onto my surface and knead it for exactly 7 minutes. So, well, let me just go ahead and do that. There it is. There's my ring. Let's get that out of the way. I'm going to take off my ring because that gets a little sticky. And there's a little olive oil left in this container from when I'm going to use that just to kind of keep it from sticking quite as much to my hands. And 7 minutes starting now. And that's 7 minutes. Okay, now I'm going to take this ball of dough and I'm going to put it in a bowl that has been oiled and set it aside to let it rise for an hour. I'm going to, again, use a little olive oil, or even for this vegetable oil, whatever's cheapest, to oil a bowl so it doesn't stick as it rises, and let it sit for an hour. So it's now been an hour, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. I put it in that well-oiled bowl and I covered it, and it's about double in size. So I'm going to dump it out. And this is the 1 minute knead. It's got a little bit of oil on it, but what we're doing is we're pushing the air out, and again, fold it, turn it. We're going to do this for 1 minute. Okay, so just knead it and work it, and because it's got the oil on it, it doesn't like sort of cling to itself as good as it did before. But the point here again is just to get the air out and work it through. And I'm pulling from the edge and pushing down into the middle. I'm pushing from the edge and pushing down into the middle. And down and down. And then when I get it kneaded for 1 minute, when I've kneaded it for 1 minute, I'm going to shape it into a loaf and put it into a standard loaf pan, which is you know, the size of a banana bread, or this pan right here. I'm going to just shape it into a loaf and drop it in there and let it rise again for another hour before popping it into an oven that's been preheated to 375 degrees. My oven is a little off, so I preheat it to 380 degrees and bake it at that temperature. But if your oven is true, you should 375 should be fine, and you're going to bake it for 30 minutes. But again, that's after you've kneaded it for a good minute and then shaped it into a loaf. And now that oil is getting worked in, so it's starting to stick a little bit better than before. I am really leaning into it with the palm of my, not the palm, but the heel of my hand. The heel of my palm, I guess is what you'd call it. And we're almost at a minute. And I'm going to start to shape it into a loaf. I've seen some people actually roll it out into a rectangle and then roll it like so to get that loaf shape. I'm not going to do that. I don't think that's necessary. I think it doesn't have to be perfect either, because it's going to relax and rise in the loaf pan. So that's about what my loaf is going to look like. And I'm going to drop it into, now I did oil this pan. I took a little vegetable oil, put it on a paper towel. The pan itself is non-stick, so I haven't had my bread stick at all. So bam, there it is. That's what it looks like. You can see it barely, it doesn't even touch the sides. It's right in the middle. I'm going to cover it again for another hour, let it rise. Okay, we're at the final step before popping it in the oven. You can see that it's raised a lot from the last time we looked at it. Again, I'm going to throw it in an oven that's been preheated to 375 degrees for 30 minutes. And the next time you see it, it will be a finished loaf of bread. And I'm about to pull the bread out of the oven. And there it is. I'm going to tip it out of the pan. And I'm going to put it on a cooling rack. And that's it.